Welcome to the Sedona Soul Sisters show, down-to-earth discussions on spirituality, metaphysics, paranormal, and healing topics. The Sedona Soul Sisters are Terry Ann Russell, Roz Reynolds, and myself, Ivory Lanou. We have offices in Sedona, Arizona, where we see clients from all over the world. Today's topic is cultivating compassion. So we're talking about how you can become more compassionate and how you can help your children grow up to be more compassionate as well. If you have questions or comments and you pop in live during the show, you're welcome to raise your hand and ask it. We'll unmute you. Or you can ask it in the chat room here on the show. We'll answer it live on the show. But if you're watching the show later on our YouTube channel, feel free to contact us. The email is in the information for the show. And email us your question. We'll get back to you at any time. Boy, compassion's a big one right now with everything going on. It's become a very black and white situation for many, many people. And I think that is a lot to do with lack of compassion.
Yeah, I saw something today I posted. It said, "Make America kind again."
I've seen that too, and I think this is a big part of it is, when you lose common courtesy, when you're not willing to hear someone, when you're not willing to have a civil discussion, then you've lost a bit of your soul as a person and as a country, and it's being reflected on a big scale for us right now. So that's part of the reason why this topic's so important, but it's also because we're making this major shift forward in frequency as a people, as a planet. It's just not going to work if people continue to think of us and them.
True. It's a very it's for people.
I can't hear you, Roz.
Sadly. Well, I have my volume up. Can you hear me at all?
Yes.
Yeah.
We hear you.
No. I seem to be mega of technical difficulties today.
We are still in Mercury retrograde too.
It's been 2 weeks of that. What did you want to say, Roz?
I don't know what. Huh?
You're cutting in and out a little bit. What did you want to say?
I just think it's a very cynical and jaded time for a lot of people, as a result of feeling alone. And sadly, when you feel that way, it's hard to have compassion for others because you're absorbed in yourself.
Mm-hmm. And what's one of the fastest ways to heal is to get yourself out of your own head and thinking about what's going on with you and how can I help someone else. Now let's take that to a large world scale here and see that if we put that into practice, we'd have a very different look to our society and our world right now.
I think it's important, and the children coming in now, I've been saying this for a few years, the children coming in now are highly sensitive beings. They are much more compassionate. And so they're here as a highly sensitive being. And right now with all the hatred and all the fear and everything going on around them, children are really having a difficult time sort of finding their footing in all of this. I mean, my daughter has said to me, why are they so, like, they were watching the presidential debate quick last night and my parents were watching and my husband, and why are they so mean to one another? And it's like, out of the mouth of babes, it's like they're not focusing on the issues. And, for an 11-year-old to be able to see that and say, why are they so mean? And they're not focusing on what they should be. It's really amazing to me.
It is. And I think that when you step out of the us and them, I don't care whether it's what the us and them is. It can be within our country. It can be between countries. As long as we have an us and them, we are not coming from a place of compassion. And it sets us up for distrust, for self-satisfaction, selfishness. That whole thing of America first really means not thinking about the rest of the world. and let's just put ourselves first. Well, that's like the ultimate selfish stance. You know, you can do that as a person and you can do it as a country, but does it serve the people of the world? No. So yes, I agree with you. There's a lot of children coming in who are very sensitive, but not all of them are. So
No.
some of them, they're going to be struggling because they're more innocent souls. They're not as world weary as adults tend to be and experienced with what's going on, but they're very sensitive to what's happening and it's confusing for them. So I think helping children, talking to them about thinking about both sides of issues as much as possible, looking at things from different angles, finding gray areas, always looking for the gray areas, helps you get out of the black and white thinking.
I think, you know, what I notice is when I am out in public, when I you know, because we've been a little housebound for a while, um, I notice how little uh, patience people have with their children, and especially I notice it on the occasion where I'm in a location where there are a lot of children. Um, the the children themselves. I mean, I would imagine that the sensitive children right now are just ready to, you know, retreat somewhere because there's just a lot of harsh words. I mean, you hear the kids talking to each other. They're not, you know, bending over with kindness, most of them. So I think a lot of this has to start at the home, in the home, and how you raise your children to think of other people.
They
And
watch us for modeling of what to do. But let's start with ourselves. What can we do to become more compassionate people? Well, I think a big part of it, this is something I practice consciously, is when I'm around other people and a conversation starts up and they'll maybe be gossiping about somebody like, isn't that awful what she did? She didn't even offer to help. And I'll say something like, I'll think about it and I'll say like, well, maybe she comes from a different kind of family situation. Maybe, you know, she's not sure of what she's supposed to do or thinks that might be putting her nose into things as a new person. And they're like, oh, I didn't think of that. So a lot of people really are not thinking. This is something I was putting a lot of thought to yesterday, like developing compassion. Here's an exercise that you can do that I think is very helpful. Every time someone says something you don't like or does something you don't like, think to yourself, what's the best possible reason this just happened? Maybe they're sick. Maybe they have a really bad day. Maybe they're stressed out. You know, 99% of the time, it has nothing to do with you. And that's something to remind yourself of. But asking yourself what's the best possible reason for their behavior or words. And it's not making excuses. It's trying to understand the truth of what's happening here. They're not really attacking you. They're not really striking out at you or trying to hurt you. It's something going on with them. And when you think about it that way, it diffuses it.
Yeah, I agree. I think for people, though, sometimes it's really hard to take yourself out of that, especially, you know, nowadays with the energy being so heavy and everybody being worried about money and their work and everything. So now it's just really a difficult time. And I think this is the most important time that we need to be compassionate for others. One thing that I really like that I do is my morning ritual with my gratitude. And so even if I'm not feeling overly grateful today or I've had a rough day, I still try to get into that space of being grateful for the day and sending love out to not only myself and my family, but to others who are struggling through this difficult time as well.
I think that's very important.
lots of that struggling right now. I was just the things that, you know, because of the things that I watch when I'm online, the things that come up um, are about people's situations around the world and a lot of animal situations around the world. So it's really a time right now to realize that anything we can do to help, any contribution we can make, is of value.
It really is. We're in this painful process of this shift to a higher dimension, and nobody said it would be easy. So we need to be more gentle with one another now. We need to be more gentle with one another simply because what's going on? We've got COVID, we have the economy, there's just, and the election strife, the protests that are frightening to some people, some violence that have gone around some of that. There's a lot there, so be gentle with one another. Let's not turn and be more harsh, but let's try to be more kind and more gentle. And it isn't, you're right, Marianne, it's not easy to do that. It's something that when I realized it, this was years ago, I started consciously stopping myself, and I'm pretty successful the majority of the time, to think about before I say anything or even allow myself to fully feel an emotional reaction. I want to stop and think, why did they probably do that? What's going on with them? Or what's probably going on with them? It doesn't excuse their behavior. It doesn't make it right, but it helps you not take it personally so that you can think about what's going on with this person. Maybe there's something you can do to help them or diffuse it, and at least not take it on yourself, which makes it hard. If you start taking everything personally, then you're going to be in a defense stance everywhere you go.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, having that empathy, and I think because of the times, I just feel like the times have changed so drastically from where I grew up, or my older children, where they grew up, and it was all about community, and you knew your neighbors. And we've gotten so far displaced from that. So, it's really, we've become accustomed to really only thinking about ourselves and our situation. And that could be the only most important thing in the world right now, is what's going on with us. And that's so far from the truth. But having that empathy for others, like you were saying, think about what they're going through. And yeah, most times it is. I mean, when you meet somebody that's a bully or mean to other people, a lot of times it is that internal battle that they are having with themselves. They have their own issues that they're going through as well. So it's very important to sort of step back from that.
When it comes to children, something I found very effective was I've got a lot of, not that I had personally a lot of children, but a lot of children in my life. So when something would happen, I would ask them, what do you think that person is feeling right now? And sometimes you might just get a little blank stare, and you can, kind of work out, do you think they might be sad? Yes. Do you think they might be scared? Mm-hmm. That's really important things for them to learn to tune into. It's hard to feel compassion if you don't understand emotions. You can't identify them, feel it within yourself what it's like, then you want to help them. This is why, sociopaths have such a difficult time. To me, they're born with an emotional birth defect where they can't feel that. So it makes it really hard for them to know what's going on with people. But average people can learn that if they're not natural empaths, where they definitely, see emotions, they're super empathic, and they know when something's wrong with a person, they can identify that emotion. But you can teach children to be a lot better at it, and then it helps them use that moving forward. It's not that you can't do that for yourself, but it's so much easier with children because you've got this fresh little mind that you can mold in a positive direction by helping them get in touch more with emotions. Now, if you've got one of these little rainbow and crystal children coming in, you're not going to have a problem with that. They're going to be like over emotional, overly tuned into that.
Which also is for them about finding that balance. They're struggling with finding their way as well. They're like at the other side of the spectrum.
Absolutely. Roz, you have lots of children. Actually, both of
I
you.
did really make an effort, while they were growing up, to teach them to consider other people's situation, and give consideration to other people's situations and their particular, life, kind of lifestyle and life approach to things. Because is pointed out, every household is different. Every culture. I mean, we have a tremendous number of cultures and ethnic backgrounds in our country, and allowing everybody to kind of be themselves and have some understanding and compassion. And of course, where I grew up, I mean, in Southern California, there's a tremendous of different ethnic backgrounds, and having tolerance, compassion, and tolerance is really an important part of um, kind of like allowing people to be who they are and not enforcing who you feel they should. And that's
The big one.
comes from a place of compassion and kindness. It's about love, really. I mean, you have to have some love for your, fellow beings, your fellow people on the planet, and have some understanding that everybody has a different perspective. So I feel very blessed because my children are, overall pretty tolerant. And they grew up in a very mixed neighborhood. We had people of all ethnicities in our neighborhood, and for Southern California, we had a lot of Hispanics, Asians. So I think just being in that mindset will let me realize that their experience in their home is very different than mine. So the one thing that holds that all together amongst people is love.
Absolutely. Compassion and love, I think, go hand in hand. And love is not always romantic love. Love comes in many forms.
It
So
does.
that's something we need to project more of out there as well. And you can take some time and project it out in a meditation out to the world, but how about projecting it to everyone you come in contact with? How about projecting kindness, compassion to the people you interact with, to even on the phone. Like, I'm going to give an example here. This is my Achilles heel. Marketing calls. Oh my God. Roz knows I just hate being called for somebody trying to sell me something. And it is the biggest struggle for me to be nice to them because I hate it so much and I resent the intrusion, and I'm on the do not call list. Our office is on the do not call list, gets ignored all the time. So that's the hardest thing for me, to really calm myself down and think, this person is just trying to make a living. This is the job that they got. In the conversation, but as kindly as you can. That's a good challenge for anybody. As kindly as you can. That's a good way to put it. And sometimes the kindest you can may not be the greatest, but over time, your compassion grows. And Ross said something like that love for your fellow man. That's something that I get surprised by when I find people talking and they're like, I don't care, I'll never meet those people. I don't care about that country. I'm never going to go there. I don't know anybody there. And I think, wow, they're human beings. We're all human beings, and we're all sharing the same home, planet Earth. So we need to get along. We need to get along, and we need to have compassion for one another. We should not be worried about someone's religious belief. It's their why is our religious or someone's religious belief better than someone else's, or lighter or truer than someone else's? It's not our business to get involved in. Whatever people believe in, if it's not breaking the law, it's not hurting someone, then it's their business. And that's something that we need to have a little compassion and say that's how they choose to live their life. That's what they choose to believe, and leave them alone.
I think, we're at a time right now where hatred and intolerance has been a little glorified by groups of people, and it doesn't really make for any positive result for people to be living in that space. And if there's there's a huge contingent of people now that you hear speaking on social media or I don't watch the news that often, but I do read headlines sometimes, and just their opinions that they're the only ones who are important. They're the only ones who have any right. That attitude of I have the right to tell you how to live your life. If you could get back into the old, it's very it's so trite in a way, but it's so true. The golden rule of do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That- That's the ultimate compassionate approach to things. Let's just let people, as long as they're not having the intention to hurt anyone else or the intention to control. Of course, that's a lot of what we're experiencing now. So it's an important time to kind of, remind people, hey, have a little tolerance, realize that compassion is about understanding. And it is about love. It's about the love of, other people, but we want the earth to be a nice place. Right now we're in a, pretty big battle with just trying to keep the earth healthy of all the stuff that's been done, climate, uh, violations. I consider those to be kind of violations of scientific logic. Um, so it's a very difficult time for people.
Something you brought up, Roz, makes me think, like you were mentioning the people who are really strong discord, and I'm thinking about the people who feel compelled to violence, the ones who are very, very angry. Some people, there's definitely some reasons to be angry in our country right now, but these are the extremes I'm talking about. Overall, we have to realize those people are the ones who are struggling the most with the frequency rising, and it hurts them. They don't know what's going on, but it hurts them because they have farther to go up. They have farther to rise, and their energy is discordant to what everything's rising to. That it's very, very uncomfortable for them, and that will go out sideways as anger, discord, violence, acts like that, that they just kind of don't know what to do with it because they have no idea what's going on. So there's a way you can have compassion too, is it's not all about what it seems to be. The things that are happening is not always what it seems to be. Yes, that is happening, but is that the reason why it's happening almost always comes back to this rising frequency, which has to happen for us to be enlightened as a planet. We have to get there, and it's not going to be easy. So this is the time that we had already always been warned about was coming, and we knew it wouldn't be easy. And so those of us who understand what's happening or have the ability to grasp it have a responsibility to behave in a more compassionate way than you normally would even.
True. And I think, you know, realizing that it is a responsibility of what we project and our intention and how we are treating others. Um, do we have compassion and understanding within our soul? And do we want to be involved in supporting and helping other people when they are, you know, trying to do what feels right to them? We have to make that decision of how we can impact and how our words and thoughts, which, our intention has huge energy. So our words and thoughts, when other people are going into rage, hatred, and all the other, you know, less lower frequency and less helpful emotions start to come to the surface, it's important that we realize that we can send energy to that, we can focus on that, but and ultimately, you know, we have to be in our place of peace and be able to speak to that.
I agree.
Pretty tough in this time. And you do, you know, you do wonder, these people who have the rage and anger built up to a level that's staggering, you know, they have to at some point come to a reality check of, you know, this is a choice they're making. So it's a tough call. I mean, I'm always, you know, I'm always reminding myself when people are doing stuff that I consider to be really violent and hostile, you know, that they're just acting out their inner turmoil and rage, etc. But
And I was going to say, Roz knows this. I don't know if I told Terry Ann, but there was about a 2-week period where I was having rage. And that's not normal for me. I don't even get angry that often, but rage is like super. I haven't had that in so long. And I was like raging at people, rage. Oh my gosh, the poor telemarketers. Yeah, they got the brunt of it. They did. I admit it. You know, you can be high on your spiritual journey and still have periods of time. And I had to like isolate myself more than ever and really think about like why is what's going on with me, and then have compassion for myself, which is, oh my gosh, how can I forget? You know, as an empath, I pick up everything, and I've been hit so hard with the emotions and the energy around the planet. I told you, sometimes it has taken me down to my knees like a tidal wave of emotion. This time it hit me like a tidal wave of anger and rage. And I had to just be compassionate with myself that this isn't me, this isn't coming from inside me. And I'm telling you this because if it happened to me, it's probably happening to some of you listening as well, that you feel these strong emotions that are not typical for you. Understand that you're absorbing the emotions going on around you in the country and the world, and you just need to discharge that. So I have a grounding pad, and the grounding pad is essential for me to the point when if I travel, I take it with me. I roll that thing up, take it with me, and I need to use it pretty much every day during this time to stay very balanced and to not have the tidal waves of emotion affecting me in a negative way. And when I realized that, I felt so much better because I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, where is this coming from? This is so odd. I felt like something was taking over my body in a way. So be compassionate with yourself as well, that you might not be feeling very good health-wise. There's a lot of illness going around that we believe, Sedona Soul Sisters has talked about, and we believe is uh, being affected by earth energy, making people quite sick in many different ways, increasing physical ailments you already have. So people are suffering in ways that you might not even think about or see or realize, that hopefully that'll help you have more compassion right now more than ever, which is one of the key components to shifting our planetary energy at this time.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot because even all of us, like you were just saying, we've all had our issues come up as well. And so staying in the light, grounding is so important. I also have my mat that I use that when I can't get outside or it's too hot, that it's so essential. And I don't think people realize how essential it is to be out and to be grounded. When we were down in Tucson last weekend, I actually got to put my feet in real grass.
That's a treat.
It is a treat when you live up here in Arizona. So it was like so wonderful feeling. It was cool on my feet, but I really felt fully connected and fully more in my physical body.
It helps a lot. That's something that's been coming up in readings for me lately and spiritual counseling, is that people, it ends up that they need contact with nature. They need earthing, which is putting your feet on grass or dirt for 30 minutes a day, or they need grounding, which would be the same way through a grounding pad. It's just like earthing. So those things are coming up in readings, and I find myself referring people to the earthing book, to the mats, to doing earthing outside far more than I normally would be. And hopefully maybe that's going to help people find their compassion. You know, your compassion can be buried by negative emotions like fear, anxiety, absolutely, and anger can bury your compassion and your love. So how do you unbury that?
You know, too, like when you're experiencing someone else's reaction, I mean, you know, we've laughed about the Aries girls here, but you know, I can start having uh, what I consider to be kind of a typical Aries go off on a rant thing. If I'm not, you know, on top of it, and then I have to always remind myself, okay, you know, how is my current opinion or whatever I'm talking about impacting, you know, people around me. And of course, when you raise children, I mean, you totally have to be in that consciousness level, which we've all done. Um, but it's not about, you know, entirely how you feel. It's how you are impacting the world and the other people around you. And I think having some, you know, that reminder to yourself of, you know, have some compassion for those in your immediate sphere of energy and influence, that maybe they don't really want to hear everything you're upset about, and give that some thought, because you know, having compassion for how people are going to react and how it's going to make them feel is an important part too.
And if you feel really stuck, I'm going to suggest something radical here. Traditional counseling, and if that's too much for you, spiritual counseling, which we all offer. Just having somebody to talk to about what you're feeling, what you're experiencing can really help you get your balance again as well, and disperse some of the negative emotions. Keeping it all to yourself, or what we call dumping your emotions on other people who can't help you, like your family, your friends, who may not have any counseling skills or experience. You're just unloading it so you feel better by dumping it on them. That's not going to help you. Counseling, spiritual counseling, counseling of some sort can really help you kind of get all of that out of the way and get down to what's really going on. What are you feeling under all of that? And when you deal with that, you're going to be able to open up to love, to compassion, to caring. I'm very passionate about this. Yes, I worked in the mental health field for a long time, but still I do a lot of counseling. And I'm sure all three of us have had people come to us who think that they're upset about one thing. They think that this is what's going on in their life, but by the time they go through some counseling, they realize that's not the issue at all. And that might be true for you or someone you know as well. So that'll help them open up to be able to begin to be more compassionate people, more loving.
Yeah, it's that underlying issue that either you're aware of and you don't want to be aware of, or sometimes they're not aware that there is an underlying issue going on until they start to dig a little deeper into that.
And often they don't want to even dig, they don't want to talk about or let themselves identify an emotion. And there's a lot of people who feel that way. That's called stuffing your emotions, where you don't allow yourself to feel them. Or what happens is they get bigger and bigger and they explode what we call sideways into anger, violence, inappropriate reactions and behaviors. So we're seeing that around our country and around the world because people don't know what to do with these emotions. And they're afraid or unwilling, blocking, digging down under them. So that's part of the resistance to compassion. So if that's you or somebody you love or a child you know, this is a good time to look at counseling. And there's a lot of free counseling services out there too. If money is the issue, never let that get in the way. And online counseling, lots of online counseling available now. I remember when that first came out, it was like, oh, that's fantastic. Now it's kind of necessary.
I
Any
think
other thoughts on compassion?
we're in a time right now when all of the things that we're talking about are things that people aren't really necessarily thinking about because of their level of stress and anxiety, as we mentioned, and everything they're trying to deal with. So, incorporating thinking of others and how everyone, I mean, I've seen some amazing stuff online where people have started reaching out, have gotten other people involved in their community, um, with food, housing. I mean, things that people have never expected that they weren't going to have those things. And suddenly now they're in a position where they don't. And, you know, jobs. I mean, people who have been at the same jobs for many years, you know, now are waiting as we go through this whole process. And other people who know them or know of them are reaching out to help them with supplies, places to be, etc. So compassion can take many forms, and being open to providing that kind of help and working with people is, I think it really can be kind of like a miracle in your life.
It can. And one quick thing you can do that's kind of an easy, well, I think it's easy, you might not, but it will be over time. I've had some people be really kind of verbally attack me in like the grocery store and things, just real vicious kind of things, was like for nothing. Like I'm not used to having this kind of thing happen, but it's been happening a few times over the last 6 months, I'd say, escalating. And I don't really say anything to them, or I'll say, oh, I'm so sorry, even though they're the ones who did something really out of line or over the line. I'll just try to diffuse it, because one thing I know for sure is, and it's not just me, but it's common knowledge, is anger begets more anger. So if I respond angry, even though I know I'm right in this, but is it important to be right, or is it important to diffuse some anger in this world? I choose to diffuse the anger. So I don't respond in anger. And I usually respond in a very quiet, calm voice. I go back to my mental health training when I worked at the psychiatric hospital. I've talked about this numerous times, but if you just have what they call flat affect, which is no expression on your face, and you talk very softly, it calms people down. So I just start talking like this. I'm so sorry. And I don't say anything more. I don't give more eye contact. I just finish what I'm doing and get out of there, because I can feel those people are on the verge of derangement. And there's more and more of that happening, where the least little thing could put them over the edge. Those are things you're seeing. This not setting a political statement, but just something I've seen, where store staff are being attacked by people because they say, hey, please put a mask on, and they get attacked or killed. So that kind of thing, there's more and more of people out there who are just right on the edge. So have some compassion for yourself and them in a case like that. And it's, most people want to be right, but being right is not always what's important. It's rarely what's important, really.
Aunt used to tell me that all the time.
Who is that?
Anthony, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
Yeah, I mean, the person who has to have the last word is not going to be a very loved person.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, yes, that's the case, but I just want you to be aware that I can feel it. I mean, I feel everyone's emotions everywhere I go. And I can feel when somebody is right at the verge of just losing it, and it's happening more and more and more. So another good reason to be compassionate, to let go of being right, to respond with a kindness or just a calming word, or say nothing at all and just walk on, do your thing. It's better to do that than to engage in an angry conversation that's going to escalate a person who could easily become violent. So many, many reasons right now to step into a role of compassion, and just being more aware of what's going on around you is going to help with that too. Any other thoughts on this topic today, ladies? All right. Well, thank you for watching the Sedona Soul Sisters show. If you'd like more information about us or our services, we hope that you'll visit our website, sedonasoulsisters.com. You can watch the show later on our YouTube channel, which is the Sedona Soul Sisters show. We have all of our shows posted there, and you can still ask your questions. Tune in next week. The topic will be how to knock resistance to the curb. Kapow! I like that one. And in the meantime, we hope you have an enlightening week.